Let's talk about 5-finger exercises for a moment. The temptation can be just to keep your hand in one fixed position and just the fingers kind of wiggle as you go. What you really want to do instead is remember that your wrist is designed to move, and that works to your advantage. Your wrist can go sideways, it can go up and down. When we combine these motions, we end up with a circular motion. And when we apply that to playing, it means that as we realign the wrist, the fingers, the lengths of the fingers, can line up with the lengths of the keys. This is particularly advantageous when we get to the black keys because, as you may notice, they don't come out as far from the fall board as the white keys do, for one thing. For another, they're raised up higher than the level of the white keys. And they're also narrower than out here. So the width of this key is narrower than the width of this key. When you press this key down, you have a natural wall on either side. So if your finger goes from side to side, you don't fall off. However, when you go on a black key, you're still raised up above the level of the keys on either side. So as you go from side to side, it's pretty easy to fall off. Now, some folks get a little uncertain and disconcerted about that. So the tendency is when we get to the black keys for people to flatten out their fingers like that. And I think some of that is you want to be able to see what's going on with your hand, because if you can't see your tip of your finger, where is it? You have to get to the point of trusting that your finger can find the top of the key. On this piano, the finish is such that I can see the reflection in the fall board here. If you don't happen to have a fall board, for example, if you've got a digital keyboard and there's just the place where the keys meet the case and there's not much there other than a few buttons, maybe an on button or a transpose button, something like that, take a little locker mirror and place it about here so that you can see in your reflection what's happening. That way you can see when your tip of your finger is lining up, where it is on that key. And you can also see pretty easily, am I lining up? What do I need to do to make that happen? Now watch the difference this makes. So if I play with a flatter finger, notice that not all of my fingers are the same length. This one's taller, this one comes further back, and the thumb the furthest back of all. When I let my fingers bend and curve, now it's a little bit closer. So I'll go here so you can sort of see. They can sort of make that happen. But as we play, this one still comes furthest out, this one's still furthest back, and here we go. So what do? Watch what happens as I let my wrist adjust. As my wrist goes this way, now the thumb's closer. As my wrist goes this way, now my pinky can reach. So I'm going to just fall under the lip of this. This is the fall board here. I'm going to fall under the lip a little bit. So I'm playing upside down. So you can sort of see. See, I'm lining this up. Now I'm lining up with that one, the middle finger. And then as I go this way, it feels very strange to me because I'm doing everything upside down here. Now I'm going to take that idea and put it on the keys, and you see how as we move, there's the thumb able to see, pointer finger able to see. Now this is lined up, lined up, lined up, go around the corner. Now I'll do this a little higher up. You see how that wrist keeps moving, keeps moving, keeps moving. Now the thumb's out here. That's okay. I'm not playing my thumb right now. But here's the thing. If I just keep my hand locked, I need to go closer to the fall board in order for all of my fingers to stay on the keys. Otherwise, the thumb falls off and the pinky falls off. But even if I go so that I can get the thumb to play, if I don't move my wrist, and then by the time I get to the pinky, especially if I'm younger, I don't have really long fingers, by the time I get to this one, it's like I don't feel like I have any strength. So the finger tends to flatten out, do you see? As opposed to have a curve, it tends to flatten out like this, and then you get, oh, there's no strength like that. So since it's harder to do this, people end up compensating with a rotation kind of thing. It's like a karate chop, hi-ya! And you have far less control that way. Over time, you need to allow for the muscle coordination to develop for dexterity and for the muscle strength and these fine little motor muscles to be able to coordinate. So as you start, you might just do this sort of a motion to get used to what that feels like, so that your wrist stays nice and loose and can move like so. You might remind your fingertips that it's possible to stay nice and relaxed, and they can stay nice and curved. And you make contact with your thumb on each of those fingertips there, from the pointer to the tall, the ring to the pinky. And now where you press the note, where you contact the key, I mean to say, it will be in a range of motion, especially as we start playing wider across and move across the keyboard more and more. You'll find that you'll use more and more of a change in angle, a change in approach. And as you need to reach wider, you'll notice that, okay, there's still a gentle curve there, but it's a shallower one. And if I go like so, I will tend to still let my wrist move. So it's easier to find that, as opposed to, do you see how you're gonna fall off like that if you do that? And this way, look how flat that poor finger is, and it's really a lot more tension. Whereas if I'm letting my wrist move and letting that curve, I'm staying as relaxed as I can without just completely flump, but no excess tension. And as I go from here to here, do you see, I'm so used to, as opposed to, okay, what am I gonna do here? No, we don't wanna do that. I pivot on this finger here, and now it's much easier to navigate. Or I could pivot on the ring finger if I wasn't playing the tall finger at that moment. And see how the wrist is moving? Here, we do that. Wrist is moving. And I'll switch to a different chord. At some point, if you're going to really be around, you might actually end up using the edge here. Every person's hand is just that little bit different. So if you are having to play a chord later on, you will be adjusting how far out versus how far in, close to the fallboard you are. But the basic principle of keeping your fingers lined up with the length of the key whenever you can, letting your wrist move and letting your fingers feel wiry, that is constant. So to come back to now, I'm really exaggerating. If I'm going to go a little bit faster, the faster we go, the more subtle the motion becomes. But the bottom line, let that wrist move. If you play a finger 5 exercise in particular and just stay, you're not getting the benefit from it. Use this opportunity to learn how to move, to learn to move. That propels you to the next and the next and the next and the next skill.